I was married to my childhood sweetheart for a year, and she was constantly surrounded by scandal. The day the one who got away came back to the country, I didn't go home. She searched everywhere for me, nearly turning the whole city upside down. When she finally got me on the phone, her voice was trembling. "Joshua, why didn't you come home?" When I got home from work, I heard laughter and commotion coming from the second floor. I had just taken off my shoes when a guy in a bathrobe came running down. He casually grabbed a milk from the kitchen, acting as if he were the man of the house. I didn't have to ask. I knew he was another one of the men Selena Reed had brought home. This was the 9th time this month. "Hey, Mr. Miller. Getting in late, huh?" The man flashed me a handsome smile. He looked familiar, like some hot young actor who was all the rage right now. "Yeah." I answered flatly and started toward the bedroom, but then I heard footsteps on the wooden staircase. Selena was wearing a silk robe, its collar open, looking languidly alluring. "Are you done yet?" "We're not finished." Her voice was slightly hoarse, with an unintentional hint of seduction. It was obvious what she meant by finished. Selena had a stunning, aloof kind of beauty, but her behavior was cynical and reckless, like a player. "Coming right up, Ms. Reed." The actor shot me a fawning, triumphant smile, as if to say it wouldn't be long before he was the true master of this mansion. I ignored them and walked straight to my room. As I passed through the living room, a familiar woody scent filled the air. In the trash can were the shattered pieces of my favorite bottle of cologne. I frowned. Who broke my cologne? The house staff stayed silent. The actor paused on his way up the stairs. A playful tone, completely devoid of apology, floated down. That was me. I was just fooling around with Ms. Reed and accidentally bumped into it. It wasn't on purpose. "You don't mind, do you, Mr. Miller?" He said it while clinging to Selena's arm, as if he'd found his protector. And my so-called wife had no intention of explaining a thing. Of course, I wasn't going to cross Selena Reed. After all, my company depended on her. I managed to smile, pretending not to care. Of course not. I'm sure Ms. Reed will buy me a new one anyway, right? I looked at Selena. Her eyes were cold as ice. I was used to it, but every time I saw that look, my heart still twisted. She scoffed, not bothering to answer me, and went straight upstairs. "Ms. Reed, slow down. Wait for me." My marriage to Selena was a business arrangement. To be precise, my father was seriously ill, and our company was in trouble. So I was to marry into the Reed family to secure a backer. She and I were childhood sweethearts, in a way. She was a year older than me. But Selena was in love with someone else, a guy who had gone abroad, so they couldn't be together. She only married me because of pressure from our families. In the years since, she's been incredibly cold to me. Bringing men home was normal for her, and being wrapped up in scandals was nothing new. It was her way of fighting back against her family and against me. But she wasn't always so cruel to me. When I was a kid and my stepmom would find excuses to punish me, she would step in and defend me. She told me to get even if I was bullied and even helped me play pranks on my stepmother. I'd had a crush on her since we were kids, even though she always found me annoying. Then, in high school, the one that got away appeared, and she and I drifted apart. I buried my feelings for her in the deepest, darkest corner of my heart. No one could ever find out. The next morning, a brand new bottle of cologne was sitting on the living room table. But Selena was gone for days, off messing around somewhere. I was busy with work and didn't have time to keep track of her. My dad's entertainment company had been a mess, and after taking over, I had to fix every single problem myself. God only knows how I got through that time. I was reviewing a contract when my best friend, Ben, started blowing up my phone. "Hey, make it quick.
I'm busy."
Ethan's back." My fingers froze. I almost dropped my phone. Ethan, the man Selena was in love with. Reliable source. He's landing at the airport tonight. "Hey, Joshua Miller, did you hear me?" Ben's voice was urgent, as if he were more anxious than I was. I replied calmly, pretending it had nothing to do with me. "That's it? Dude, that's your #1 rival. Aren't you worried you're about to get replaced? Our marriage is just for show. I can't control what she does." Besides, the position of Selena Reed's husband was never really mine to begin with. I made an excuse about being busy and hung up. After calming down, I remembered there was a gala tonight that Selena and I were supposed to attend together. I found my chat history with her. The last message was from me, telling her about the gala. She had never replied. Since Ethan was back, I was destined to go alone tonight. I chugged a large cup of coffee to push down the bitter feeling in my chest and got back to work. The gala was held at the Grand Continental, a hotel the Reed family had a stake in. All the guests were from prominent families. I moved through the crowd, expertly networking. Suddenly, I saw a familiar figure. Victoria Lane, last year's Oscar-winning actress. I'd seen her movies in high school. Back then, she was America's sweetheart and I was a huge fan. My company had tried to sign her before without success. Saying hello now might open the door for future collaboration. Ms. Lane, hello. I'm Joshua Miller, CEO of Apex Entertainment. Oh, I've heard of you. Ms. Reed is your wife, isn't she? I smiled. I was used to it. Everyone knew me as Ms. Reed's husband, but no one knew me as Joshua Miller. Still, the Reed family name was very useful. Victoria Lane was more than happy to chat with me. Mr. Miller, it's a bit crowded here. Shall we find somewhere quieter to talk in detail? I've been wanting to work with the Reed family for a while now. I can't believe you approached me first. Victoria gracefully led me to the second floor. We exchanged business cards, and she said she was looking forward to working with me. It was late when I left. She offered to have her driver take me home, but I declined. Until next time, Mr. Miller. Of course. As I watched her get into her chauffeured SUV, a wave of frustration washed over me. The pecking order in this industry was so painfully obvious. If I wasn't connected to the Reeds, none of them would give me the time of day. The night was dark, the moon hidden behind the clouds. I'd been drinking, so I couldn't drive. I didn't want to go home anyway, so I hailed a cab and just had it drive around. The streets were nearly empty, with only the streetlights flashing across my face. I had two homes, but I couldn't go back to either of them. I didn't want to see my stepmother's sharp, cutting remarks. And I definitely didn't want to see Selena bringing Ethan home. I ended up at the bar Ben owned and partied until dawn. The next morning, Ben shook me awake. Dude, your wife keeps calling my phone. It's driving me crazy. Just answer it. I groggily took the phone. The person on the other end yelled, her voice trembling. Joshua Miller, where are you? I'm at Ben's bar. Why didn't you come home? Her voice was raw, as if she hadn't slept. My brain stalled for a second. My head was spinning. None of your business. I hung up, annoyed, and saw Ben watching me with a look like he was enjoying the drama. He gave me a thumbs up. You finally grew a spine. Oh crap. Is Selena going to retaliate? I was exhausted and couldn't be bothered to think about it. I closed my eyes and went back to sleep. It was already afternoon when I got home. To my surprise, Selena was there instead of with the man of her dreams. She glared at me, then suddenly rushed over and pinned me against the door. Joshua Miller, you've really got some nerve. Staying out all night. Selena's eyes scanned me darkly, as if she were inspecting me for something. Ms. Reed, I'm tired. Don't bother me. Tired? You looked pretty happy chatting with Victoria Lane. What, you finally meet your favorite actress and forget who you are? Was that a hint of jealousy in her tone? I was just talking to her about a potential collaboration. Why do you care so much? Why do you think? A friend of mine sent a picture of you two to our group chat last night. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? She was furious, as if she'd been deeply wronged. So that was it. I knew she couldn't possibly care about me. Selena Reed, isn't that a bit of a double standard? You can bring men home, so what's the big deal if I talk to another woman? That's different. She stepped closer, her crisp perfume washing over me. I'm warning you, Joshua Miller. If you dare mess around out there and cheat on me, I will make you pay. Her eyes were filled with a cold fury that could freeze a person solid. What a hypocrite. What kind of person did she think I was? I unclenched my fists and forced a smile. Don't worry. If I were ever going to do that, I'd wait until after you were dead. That way, I could openly use your money to be with someone else. I straightened the collar of her robe and smoothed out a wrinkle. Two can play at that game. Joshua Miller, you wouldn't dare. She seethed, glaring at me. Why don't you die and find out if I dare? I shot her a smile and slipped into my room. Outside, I heard the sound of a chair being kicked over. I waited until it was quiet before I went out to eat. Mrs. Lin was serving me soup. Seeing my blank expression, she couldn't help but speak up. Sir, Madam was looking for you all last night. She was very worried. And here I thought her haggard look was from a romantic night with Ethan. But what did it matter? She was only looking for me because she was afraid I'd embarrass her. That woman cared more about her reputation than anything else. I hadn't even finished my meal when I got a call summoning me to the office. One of our celebrities had been exposed for having a messy private life, and the company's phone lines were blowing up. I always told the managers to keep a tight leash on our talent. How could something so disgusting still happen? The financial loss was one thing, but how much time would it take to rebuild our reputation? As soon as I got to the office, I called a meeting and let them have it. Do my words just go in one ear and out the other? Didn't I tell them all to protect their reputations? Are they tired of living? The managers trembled, their faces pale, avoiding my eyes. I took a deep breath and had them report on the current public opinion. Get PR on this. Don't try to spin it. Terminate his contract immediately and issue a statement of apology from the company. Mr. Miller, besides him, the exposé mentioned another artist anonymously. One of ours? Yes. The manager's voice was barely a whisper. My stomach suddenly clenched, and I nearly snapped the pen in my hand. Terminate the contract. Terminate all of them and make them pay for the damages. After the meeting, the group filed out, shaken. I rarely lost my temper in front of them. They were probably in a group chat right now, cursing me out. I opened my messaging app to a flood of notifications. Some were laughing at my misfortune. Others were making snide remarks. They all knew I was Ms. Reed's husband and were eager to watch the man who married into money fall from grace. It was the best gossip they'd had in a while. It was 10 p.m. by the time I finished dealing with everything at the office. Exhausted, I headed out. My assistant warned me to use the back door. The reporters were still camped out front. I took the elevator to the underground parking garage, but before I could reach my car, a crowd of people swarmed me. Mr. Miller, what are your thoughts on the scandal involving the popular idol Ryan Smith? Your company prides itself on strict management. Why did something like this still happen? Mr. Miller, the national papers have already published a critique. Did the Reed family not help you before this broke? The barrage of questions and flashing lights made my head spin. Excuse me, it's after hours. These questions. I backed away until I was pressed against a wall. My shoe slipped on something, maybe a pebble, and I almost fell. Suddenly, a figure rushed in and pulled me into an embrace.
A familiar, crisp scent enveloped me.
That's enough. My husband is under no obligation to answer you. If you have any questions, you can ask me. You're all so diligent. I've made a note of all your publications. I'll be sure to stop by and deliver a banner of appreciation one of these days. Selena's words were slow and deliberate, her gaze sweeping over them with a dismissive air. The crowd fell silent. A few seconds later, they scattered. I tried to pull away from her, but she held my shoulders tight. Why are you pulling away? Don't you know you twisted your ankle? I was wondering why you weren't home yet. I thought you'd been captivated by someone else again. She scoffed, acting as if she were terrified I was going to cheat on her. I wanted to argue, but the world went black, and I collapsed into her arms. Hey, are you trying to fake an injury? Joshua. When I woke up, the sharp smell of disinfectant filled the air. My assistant was watching over me. Mr. Miller, you're finally awake. The young man's eyes were red. For a second, I thought I had some terminal illness. I scanned the room, but she was gone. Just as a heavy feeling settled in my chest, Selena walked in, carrying a bunch of bags. She tossed the payment receipts on the table and started opening the bags. You're awake? The doctor said you have low blood sugar and stomach problems. I didn't know what you'd want to eat, so I got a little of everything. She fumbled with the containers, almost spilling the porridge. When did the high and mighty princess who never lifted a finger learn to care for someone? Seeing that she was here, my assistant made an excuse and slipped out. I don't have an appetite, I said, shaking my head. My mind was already on tomorrow's headlines. Selena frowned, her tone leaving no room for argument. You have to eat. Grandpa came by to see you earlier. He said you've lost weight and thought I was neglecting you. So she'd been scolded. I knew her conscience couldn't have just kicked in. I forced a smile and looked at the 4 in my left hand. It would be a while. Just leave it there. I can't eat like this anyway. She followed my gaze and clicked her tongue impatiently. TSK, you're so much trouble. With that, she picked up a bowl of millet porridge and began to feed me. She was frowning, and although she looked reluctant, she waited for each spoonful to cool before bringing it to my lips. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of effort Ethan had put in to turn this arrogant woman so considerate. Or maybe, when she was with someone she loved, being kind came naturally. After I finished the porridge, she started applying medicine to my foot. She held my swollen ankle in her hands, making it look fragile. My back went rigid, and I felt completely on edge. One of the few times we'd ever been this close, and it had to be in a hospital. She glanced at me, a smirk playing on her lips. Why are you so tense? Afraid I'll hurt you? Her voice had a teasing lilt to it. Anyone else would have thought she was flirting with me. I didn't want to make a fool of myself, so I stayed silent, trying to breathe evenly to keep from blushing. She carefully picked up a cotton swab and treated the injury gently, as if handling something delicate. Watching her focused profile, I couldn't help but remember how she used to be. A wild, brilliant girl, a moon in the highest heavens. I had tried to reach for that moon once, but she was too far away. A ringtone broke my train of thought. Selena answered the phone, her voice laced with irritation. Before she left in a hurry, she instructed me. Joshua, something came up at the office. I have to go. If you need anything, call the house and have Mrs. Lin bring you food. Strange. She had always been a rebel, hating routine and rarely getting involved in company business. The corporate scandal gradually died down. Selena stopped bringing men home, but she also disappeared for days at a time. At noon, the family driver brought me lunch. I found the food a bit strange these past few days. Mrs. Lin's cooking had always been consistent. Why had the quality suddenly dropped? I forced myself to finish the meal and then received an email from the actress Victoria Lane, proactively seeking a collaboration. Our company had a new series in the works, a patriotic drama that would be perfect for her. Even though she was only interested because of the Reed family, I chose to ignore it. At the very least, her involvement would add some prestige to my company. I happily replied to her email, setting up a time to discuss the project in detail. Suddenly, a gossip alert popped up on my computer. The headline blared, "Reed heiress plays hero in late-night rescue," sparking rumors of a new flame. The accompanying photo showed Selena shielding a man behind her while confronting another. Her fierce, protective stance was unmistakable. But my eyes were fixed on the blurry profile of the man she was defending. Even from just his silhouette, I could tell it was Ethan. No wonder my assistant and employees had been acting so strange when I came into work today. The joy I'd felt moments ago plummeted. A dull ache spread through my chest. So, that's what Selena had been busy with these past few days, spending time with him, and I had naively thought she was busy with company business. She could stay out all night, but she still felt the need to control me? How ridiculous. I looked at Victoria Lane's reply, which subtly hinted at her desire to meet my grandfather-in-law. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. Why did I have to be just Ms. Reed's husband? I'm Joshua Miller. The next second, I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Mr. Smith? I need you to draw up a divorce agreement for me. What? Does Ms. Reed know about this? Why would I need her permission to get a divorce? Perhaps my tone was too cold. The person on the other end paused, then said no more. Mr. Smith was very efficient. On Friday, just after I finished a meeting, I saw several missed calls from Selena. I called back. The moment she picked up, she started screaming. Joshua Miller, what is the meaning of this? You're not illiterate, Ms. Reed. I assume you can read the document. Ha, a divorce? Do you think the Reed family is a place you can just come and go as you please? I looked down, thinking of all the help her grandfather had given me. Don't worry, I'll walk away with nothing. I won't take a single dime from you. Your family helped me, and if you ever need anything in the future, you can always call me. I could hear her gritting her teeth through the phone. In your dreams, Joshua Miller. You're not allowed to leave until I say so. Childish. I frowned and lowered my voice. Selena, how long are you going to keep humiliating me? The other end went silent, as if she was taken aback. Even if I owe your family, I'm not your punching bag. All this time, I've enjoyed many privileges under the title of Miss Reed's husband, but I've also done a lot for the Reed family in return. And in the end, people don't even remember my name. They just whisper about me behind my back. I sighed.
Selena, I'm tired.
I want to be myself. She was silent for a long time, so long I thought she hadn't been listening. I tore up the divorce papers. I don't care what your reasons are, but if you want a divorce, you'll talk to me about it face to face. The line went dead. I frowned, a wave of irritation washing over me. Was it my imagination? Or did her voice sound like she was choking back a sob? I took the divorce papers home with me, but she didn't come back that night. Not only that, she refused to answer my calls. I didn't have time to play games with her. I packed my bags, moved out, and decided to file for divorce through the courts. On Sunday, I was at the house clearing out my things. The maids offered to help, but I stopped them. They all watched me timidly, afraid to speak. I thought I had a lot of stuff, but in the end, it all fit into 2 suitcases. Everything left in the house were the suits and watches Selena had given me to keep up appearances. Suddenly, the door was thrown open with a loud bang. Selena stormed in, her face grim, reeking of stale alcohol. I had no desire to know which warm bed she had just rolled out of. She stared at me, her voice cold. Ha, packed up already? I ignored her and latched my suitcase shut. Something I did must have set her off, because she angrily strode forward and grabbed my arm. Joshua Miller, are you trying to die? I didn't agree to a divorce. Who said you could leave? I looked at her agitated expression. The last time I'd seen it was in that gossip column, when she was protecting Ethan. A sense of sorrow filled me, and I looked at her with a blank face. Selena, since marrying you, I haven't had a single day that was my own. Not one day where I was truly happy. How do you expect me to go on living like this? Leaving me to live in the swamp is the real death sentence. Her hand faltered, as if startled by the finality in my eyes. Ms. Reed, let's just part on good terms. I pushed her away and picked up my suitcases. She just stood there, looking like a lost child. Were you that unhappy with me? I don't know how she had the nerve to ask that question. Joshua, you were the one who said you wanted to marry me. Before she could finish, her throat seemed to catch, and her eyes turned red. I turned away and said coolly, I guess I was a poor judge of character back then. Are you satisfied? You? She was livid, her face turning pale. I dragged my suitcases out of the room as she yelled after me in a fit of anger. Fine. Divorce it is. Joshua Miller, you better not regret this. Selena had her secretary deliver the divorce papers. As I signed, the secretary stood by, looking like he wanted to say something. Selena picked up her pen, hesitated for a few seconds, then scrawled her name. It was finally over. In that moment, I felt an incredible sense of relief. Like a balloon that had been let go, I was free to fly wherever I wanted. I left with my luggage. Selena stayed in her study the whole time. She had glared at me throughout the process, looking like she wanted to eat me alive. It was strange. Now that we were divorced, she could be with Ethan openly. Shall I give you a ride? The secretary asked politely, reaching for my suitcase. I shifted it slightly away from him. No need. My car is already here. His expression froze, and he gave a stiff nod. I got into the taxi, fastened my seatbelt, and took one last look at the place I had lived for a year. The lavishly decorated mansion was vast and cold. I had a small apartment downtown. It was nothing compared to this place, but at least it was mine. The car had only gone a few hundred feet when a breeze blew in through the window. As I went to close it, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a figure burst out of the mansion's front gate. Selena? She was running fast, not even caring that she'd lost a high heel. Joshua! Her voice was like the desperate cry of a fledgling bird. The rest of her words were lost to the wind as her figure grew smaller and smaller. The sunlight caught her white shirt as it billowed in the wind, looking just like the proud, distant moon I used to secretly watch when we were young. I closed the window, leaving the past behind me. Driver, please go faster. Without the title of Ms. Reed's husband, I was bound to lose some connections. But I hadn't been idle all these years. Some genuine partners wanted to continue working with me, so I offered them better terms in return. In September, my high school invited me back to give a speech for its 100th anniversary celebration. My schedule was open, so I decided to go. If needed, I could donate some money for charity. It would also be good publicity for my company. The day I returned to my old school was the first day for new students. The fresh, young faces of the high schoolers passing by made me feel nostalgic. Before the speech, I wandered around the campus. Selena and I had gone to the same school but were in different classes, though that didn't stop me from keeping an eye on her every move. For some reason, ever since I set foot here, memories of her kept flooding back, unstoppable. And I was supposed to be getting over her. I walked into what used to be my old classroom, room 306. The students were all finding their dorms and hadn't come to class yet. I sat down in my old seat. The desk was the same, and I could even see some of the scratches I'd left behind. Back then, it was a popular trope in TV shows to carve the name of your crush on your desk or write it in a hidden corner of a textbook. A secret confession in an unknown place, mimicking the romance of the dramas. I had done something that foolish back then, too. That confession was carved on the underside of the desk. Even in such a hidden spot, I was terrified someone would see it. So I carved, "I like Victoria Lane." Victoria Lane was the America's sweetheart of our generation. Every guy had a crush on her. I admired her because of a movie she was in, where her character's personality was a lot like Selena's. So I used her name as a stand-in for the one I couldn't say. I bent down to look under the desk and saw that my secret had been discovered. The name Victoria Lane had been fiercely scratched out. Next to it was written, Selena Reed. I was stunned. When did she find this? And how? It felt like something was trying to break through the surface of my memory, but it was shrouded in a thick fog. My head suddenly started to ache. I stood up in a panic and hit my forehead on the desk, a dull pain shooting through me. "Joshua?" A gentle, surprised voice called out. I turned and saw my old homeroom teacher standing outside the window. "Oh my, it really is you. I thought I was mistaken. Mrs. Davis." I went out to greet her, and we chatted about my life and why I was back. Mrs. Davis was close to retiring, but her face was as kind as I remembered. She was my English teacher, and her class was always my favorite. "I heard you married Selena Reed. I see news about you two online sometimes. Such a handsome couple." I forced a smile. The divorce hadn't made the news, only people in our circle knew. I could tell back in high school. "She was really into you." High school? I frowned. Back then, Selena was in the same class as Ethan. We barely interacted. Oh yes, you might not know this, but Selena used to get into fights all the time. Her homeroom teacher, the math teacher, was at his wit's end. Even with good grades, she couldn't afford to be skipping class all the time. One time, she was standing in the office as punishment, and the math teacher pressed her for a long time, asking why she was being so rebellious. What she said then, all of us in the teacher's lounge still remember. "What did she say?" I asked. She said, "Those people deserved it. No one gets to bully Joshua." And then she begged us not to tell you because she was afraid it would affect your grades. She smiled, and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes seemed warm and kind. I was completely baffled. I had no idea about any of this. There were some nasty rich girls in high school who ran in a pack like a gang of bullies. They knew my mother had passed away, and they spread rumors about me all the time. Calling me names was a daily occurrence, and if they were in a bad mood, they'd lock me in a storage closet. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't as powerful as their fathers, so he just told me to endure it. So, all those times Selena came to school covered in bruises, was it because she was defending me? But after we got married, she bullied me too. Before I left, my teacher asked for my autograph, saying her daughter was a big fan of mine. Since when was I so famous? On the flight back to the city, my finger hovered over my phone. I wanted to ask Selena about what I'd learned today. After thinking about it, I decided it was better to ask her in person. I stared at the white clouds outside the window, my thoughts a tangled mess. But fate had other plans. The plane encountered extreme weather and experienced a mechanical failure. My assistant, sitting next to me, started panicking, grabbing my hand and sobbing. The cabin lights flickered on and off, and passengers started shouting and crying. My head began to throb again, and I felt an overwhelming sense of agitation. The pilot took emergency measures and, against all odds, managed to make an emergency landing on the ocean. We were all floating in the water, wearing life vests. I was trying to get to my assistant when a strong undercurrent pulled me down. I panicked, struggled, and gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in an unfamiliar place. The house was made of brick and mud, covered in dust, and everything around me was dilapidated and old. A plainly dressed middle-aged woman walked in and smiled at me. "You're finally awake. Here, drink some medicine so your wounds don't get infected." I tried to sit up, but my whole body ached. It felt like I had a broken rib, and my foot was swollen like a balloon. I looked at my hands, they were covered in small cuts. The woman's name was Martha. She had found me on the beach. She said the undercurrent must have slammed me against a lot of rocks to cause so many injuries. She had thought I was dead, but something about me looked familiar, so she brought me back, and it turned out I was still breathing. This place was a small fishing village, nestled between the mountains and the sea. Most of the men worked odd jobs elsewhere or fished, while the women stayed home to cook, clean, and farm. For days, Martha took care of me. I was weak and cold, and my wounds wouldn't heal. I was in and out of consciousness most of the time. Medical care here was limited, and getting to the city required a long, arduous journey over mountain roads. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed that in this age of rapid technological advancement, such a remote place still existed. Martha was giving me my medicine when she looked at me sheepishly. "Joshua, we've gotten to know each other a bit. Could you maybe give me your autograph?" My autograph? I frowned. This was the second time someone had asked me that. "My son works in town and he brought back a magazine. I saw you in it. You're a big star. I heard a star's autograph can be sold for money. Is that true?" She asked eagerly, but then seemed to feel her question was too materialistic and couldn't meet my eyes. "Joshua, I don't mean anything bad by it. I just want to save up some money for my son's wedding." I looked at her, confused. "Martha, I think you've mistaken me for someone else. As far as I could remember, I'd never been in any magazines." "No mistake. The dimples you have when you smile are exactly the same as that handsome movie star's. I might not have seen much of the world, but I have a good eye." She spent a long time rummaging through her things and finally found the dirty magazine cover. The glossy paper was stained with soot, but I saw a face that was identical to mine. The man in the picture was smiling with incredible confidence, striking a carefully designed pose. That feeling of something trying to break through surged up again. My head throbbed with pain. It felt like some of my memories were locked in a box, and I couldn't find the key. To repay Martha's kindness and speed up my recovery, I asked her to borrow a phone for me. Only a handful of people in the entire village had a phone, and they were all old flip phones. There was no signal inside the house. Martha was going up the mountain to chop firewood and offered to take me with her to find a signal. She supported me the whole way, and I was immensely grateful. A dull pain radiated from my ribs. I bit my lip. Herbal remedies alone weren't going to heal these injuries. Martha went off to chop wood, and I slowly moved around, trying to find a signal. Finally, on top of a small hill, I got 2 bars. I called Ben, but he didn't pick up. I quickly sent him a text message, asking him to come find me. As I was waiting for his reply, a light rain began to fall. Martha urged me to head back, saying the mountain path would be treacherous in the rain. That night, the rain grew heavier. A landslide blocked the only road out. I stared at my phone, which had no signal, and could only wait. I lay in bed, praying for the rain to stop. The fog was thick, and even the moonlight was faint. I couldn't help but wonder what Selena was doing right now. Was she whispering sweet nothings with Ethan? Or was she lying in the arms of some young actor? And why did she do all those strange things that made me overthink everything? I felt a deep chill that no amount of blankets could warm. It was still dark outside when Martha woke me. "Joshua, my sister-in-law said there are people down by the main road. Not sure if they're here to fix it or just passing through. But from the way they're dressed, they look like they're from out of town. Do you want to go ask to borrow their phone? Maybe their city phones will work better." A glimmer of hope sparked in my eyes. Maybe Ben had come for me. I struggled to get up, and Martha held an umbrella over me as we walked. I could see the faint glow of flashlights on the mountain road. There seemed to be a lot of people. As we got closer, a familiar figure came into view. Selena was cursing under her breath as she dug at the mud with her bare hands. "You're all a bunch of useless idiots. You can't even find one person. Didn't you say the signal was here? Why is no one here?" The men around her didn't dare say a word, just kept digging diligently, as if there were treasure buried beneath. On the ground beside them was a pile of broken shovels. I couldn't imagine how much force had been used to break them. A bodyguard tried to stop Selena but couldn't, so he just held an umbrella over her. "Joshua, I'm going to find you soon. Just wait for me, wait for me," she muttered to herself, her voice breaking into a sob. I weakly walked toward her. "Selena." She didn't hear me and kept digging. Her delicate, fair hands were already raw and bleeding from the rough soil. "Selena, I'm here." I raised my voice, and her body froze. Selena turned her head slowly, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. When she saw my face, the fury in her eyes softened instantly. The bodyguards all looked over, not daring to move. "Joshua?" Her voice was tentative, so soft it was as if she were afraid of scaring me away. "It's me." The words had barely left my lips when she stumbled toward me. She gently touched my face, feeling its warmth, and only then did she seem to believe I was real. The next second, she pulled me into a tight, warm embrace. "Joshua, I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I'll do anything you ask. Just don't do this to me. I'm begging you," she sobbed, her body soaked from the rain, the chill seeping into me. She was holding me so tightly it pressed against my injuries. Ow, I winced, my brow furrowing in pain. She immediately let go, her eyes red with guilt when she saw my condition. Soon, she called for a helicopter to take me away. Before we left, Selena gave Martha a large sum of money and promised to fund projects for the entire village. On the helicopter, I think I was running a fever. I lay weakly in her arms. Under the bright lights, I finally got a good look at her. Her clothes were torn and filthy. Her face was smudged with dirt like she'd just come out of a coal mine, and there were leaves in her hair. The elegant, high and mighty heiress was gone, and she looked no better than her disheveled bodyguards. The mountain road was too narrow for cars, so they must have hiked in to find me. With the rain, I couldn't imagine how many times they must have fallen or gotten cut by sharp branches. A pang of sympathy hit me, and in my delirium, I clutched her shirt. "Selena, who am I really?" Her body stiffened, and she looked at me with a searching gaze. "You remember? You're my husband, Joshua Miller." By the time we reached the hospital, Selena had collapsed, too. She was covered in small cuts, and after days of no sleep, her body finally gave out. The first thing she did when she woke up was ask for me. During my recovery, Selena stayed by my side every day, forbidding me from worrying about the company. Whenever I brought up Ethan, she would look exasperated and insist that he wasn't the one she loved. If I was a famous actor, then who was the CEO of Apex Entertainment? I pressed Selena for answers, but she insisted on waiting until I was fully recovered. On Friday afternoon, my father, Mark Miller, came to visit. The moment he walked in, I barely recognized him. It was as if his face didn't exist in my memory. But why hadn't my own father come looking for me when I was in an accident? Why did he wait a whole week after I was hospitalized to visit? Joshua, I've been so busy. I'm just now getting a chance to see you. You're not mad at me, are you? Mark smiled kindly, but I saw only hypocrisy. He made small talk, but everything he said felt like he was probing me. I heard you and Selena divorced. Why? Wasn't she taking good care of you? Doesn't her grandfather like you? Why don't you go and beg him? Maybe he can talk some sense into her. I frowned, a sudden realization dawning on me. When I was acting as CEO, I never once saw Mark Miller. How could a father be so completely unaware of his own son's life, focusing instead on superficial things? He only cared about profit. I lowered my eyes, tired of the charade.
I'm tired.
You should go. Mark's smile froze on his face, but he didn't argue. Before he left, he gave me a gold credit card. He told me to dress myself up nicely, stop messing around, and even if I couldn't get back with Selena, I should try to find a woman who was even better. The hospital room door closed. I stared at the gold card on the table, and it felt like a glaring insult. If the only reason to raise a son was for him to marry a rich woman, then what was the point of all my education? A wave of resentment washed over me, and I grabbed the card and chased after him. Mark was waiting for the elevator. Standing next to him was a gaudily dressed woman. My stepmother, Wendy. I stood behind a large potted plant and heard her complaining. Your son has nothing to do with the Reeds anymore. Why are you still giving him money? Keep your voice down. I saw some of the Reeds' bodyguards nearby. I think Selena still has feelings for Joshua. Fine. So what if she has feelings? They still got divorced. Wendy scoffed, and Mark didn't even try to argue. In fact, he seemed to agree with her. He looked at her stomach and sighed. All right, let's go check on the IVF situation. Don't worry. Even if I can't have a baby, I'll find someone to have one for you. My eyes widened, stunned by their twisted values. Fragments of memories flashed through my mind, and the headache returned. Wendy had health issues and had never been able to get pregnant after marrying him. They had tried IVF twice without success. My father desperately wanted another, smarter child to inherit the business. No matter how hard I studied, he never gave me a second glance. So he was only here to see if I had any remaining value, to see if I could reconnect with the Reed family. He had never intended to hand the company over to me. So where did Apex Entertainment come from? The headache intensified, a dull ache that felt like it was piercing my heart. My eyes burned, and I struggled to breathe. Suddenly, a hand covered my ears. Joshua, don't listen. A crisp scent surrounded me as an embrace shielded me from the noise. My headache started again, but this time I remembered a lot of things. I remembered the oppressive atmosphere at my father's house. I remembered Selena pursuing me for a long time in college. I remembered being discovered by a scout and becoming a national heartthrob. Selena stood beside me, anxious and worried, and called for a woman. My former psychiatrist, Dr. Evans. She was also one of Selena's best friends. Dr. Evans asked me to describe how I was feeling, and then we talked for a long time. So long that I fell asleep. In my dream, I was a shining star. It felt like I had finally found the key to that locked box of memories. Everything inside came flooding out. My name is Joshua Miller. I'm a famous actor, and I am Selena Reed's husband. We were childhood sweethearts, secretly in love with each other. We dated in college and got married after graduation. She is so proud, always complaining that I'm trouble but still doing everything for me. I love my job. I love being on stage shining. I don't want people to say I'm just a pretty face who depends on Selena. I want to be her equal. I want to prove to my father that I'm just as capable as anyone. But no matter how hard I worked, people would dismiss my efforts with a simple, well, you're Ms. Reed's husband. It was as if I hadn't earned my success through my own talent, but that the Reed family had bought it for me. At first, I didn't care what others thought. I believed my work would speak for itself. But the criticism and doubt were relentless. Then I took a role in a web series called The Ex-Husband's Return. It was a satisfying revenge drama where the wife has to grovel to win back the man she wronged. Ben and Ethan were both actors in it. While filming, I felt like the main character was an extension of myself. The protagonist divorces his wife to be his own man, builds his company into a top entertainment empire, gets his revenge on his ex, and crushes all the doubters under his feet. I wanted to be just like him. Gradually, after filming each day, I found it harder and harder to leave the character's emotions behind. Even when I did, I would feel disoriented. Sometimes I felt like the person in the show was the real me. In the end, I couldn't tell the difference between the script and reality. After the show wrapped, I couldn't shake the character, and I started acting strangely. I would suddenly kick Selena out of the bedroom to sleep on the couch or call her a player. I would see Ben in the makeup room and treat him like he was my actual brother. Selena noticed something was wrong and asked Dr. Evans to help. She diagnosed me with depression, saying I had gone too deep into my role and couldn't get out. I had mixed up my life with the TV show, creating my own personal script. Selena was afraid to intervene directly, so she found a way to walk me through it slowly. She hired a group of people to act along with me, practically bringing the entire entertainment industry to my doorstep. A voice echoed, "To your right is the script for the ex-husband's return. Pick it up and rip it to shreds. Joshua Miller, it's time to wake up." The day I recovered, Selena came to take me home. She cooked me a meal herself. It was barely passable. I finally understood why the food the driver had been bringing was so bad. She had been making it all. I looked at her with tears in my eyes, and she told me not to cry. But as soon as she said it, the tears started to fall. Selena held me and kissed them away. "I'm sorry. Joshua, you did nothing wrong. I did it all willingly. As long as you don't leave me, I'd do more than just act. I'd risk my life for you." Her voice was hoarse, filled with the joy of having me back. What a fool. I lowered my head and kissed her, and she returned it fiercely. That evening, she was in the shower, but her phone on the table kept lighting up. "Selena, you're getting messages. It seems urgent. Can you reply for me?" She had always been like this. All her passwords were my birthday. I opened her phone and saw a string of messages from one of her friends. "Dom. Hey, Selena, you gonna let me have that drone project or what? Dom. Don't play dead. Dom. If you don't give it to me, I'm sending this video to your husband." The video was of Selena drinking at a bar with friends. She was slumped over the table, her face flushed, clearly very drunk. "Hubby, hubby," she kept murmuring, like an abandoned kitten. Someone came over and patted her on the back. It was that troublemaker, Dr. Evans. "Hey, wake up. Stop calling for him. Your husband ran off with someone else." "That's not true. It's all your fault. You idiots. With your stupid ideas. Making me actually get a divorce. If it weren't for you guys, would my husband have left?" She yelled, her voice thick with grievance. The group of single guys just laughed harder. Soon, they stopped laughing, because Selena was crying her heart out. I had never seen her cry so freely, so broken. I recognized her outfit in the video. It was what she wore the day we signed the divorce papers. The day she ran out to chase after my car. A bitter pang went through my heart. I felt terrible for her. I was the real jerk for making her so miserable. Selena came out of the bathroom and saw my red-rimmed eyes. She immediately grew anxious. "What's wrong, Joshua? Did I do something to upset you?" I was crying so hard I could barely speak, just kept repeating, "I'm sorry." She saw the messages on my phone and understood. "Joshua, it's all in the past," she said, patting my back comfortingly. "Selena, why didn't you just send me to a hospital? Then I wouldn't have treated you like that. My Joshua is so afraid of the dark. How could I ever leave you all alone in a place like that?" She gently squeezed my earlobe and wiped away my tears. But they wouldn't stop. No matter how many times she wiped them away, more came. After a month with Selena, my emotional state was back to normal. During that time, she never once mentioned getting remarried. I knew she was worried because of my illness. She was giving me time, letting me work on being Joshua Miller. I decided to make a comeback and return to acting, the career I loved. Selena, as always, supported my decision unconditionally. After my comeback press conference, not a single production company or director contacted me. Partly because I was no longer Ms. Reed's husband, and partly because my medical history scared them off. But that was okay. I started over with my own studio. If I couldn't get good roles, I'd start with small parts. No matter how minor the character, I studied and perfected it. Selena quietly supported me from the sidelines, never interfering. 6 months went by like that. A director, impressed with my performance as a royal guard, decided to cast me as the 4th male lead in his movie, a villainous supporting role. Before filming, I read the script over and over until I knew the character inside and out. When the movie was released, a lot of people recognized me. Some fans edited together clips of my few scenes. Online comments went from "he looks kind of familiar" to "that's the guy who used to be a national heartthrob." I started to win back some of my old fans. Soon after, I started getting offers for small-budget short series. I got busy, so busy that I barely had time to see Selena. It was exhausting, but at the end of the day, people would say to me, "Great work today, Joshua." Finally, I was no longer just Ms. Reed's husband. Took me 5 years to get back to the peak of my career. My fans were always digging for information, so meeting up with Selena was like a spy mission, dodging everyone. We finally managed to meet at a hotel, and she was leaning against me, complaining, "You're a big star now. It's not easy getting to see you. Can't be helped. Your husband is a career man. So how are you going to make it up to me?" A familiar, lazy smile spread across her face. I cleared my throat awkwardly. "I have an early flight tomorrow morning. And so, don't stay up too late." Selena burst out laughing and wrapped her arms around my waist. The compensation I had in mind was getting remarried. I didn't know the big star had something else on his mind. I quickly covered her mouth. The mischievous glint in her eyes was unmistakable. Jerk. She was just messing with me. "I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm going to sleep." "Don't be like that, baby. We finally get to see each other, and we've barely talked." "I have nothing to talk to you about." "Then let's communicate in a different way." "You." The rest of my words were swallowed by her fierce kiss. Afterward, she caught her breath and pressed me. "Joshua, when are you going to make an honest woman out of me again?" "When I win Best Actor." "And when will that be?" "I don't know." Her expression changed, and so did the pressure of her touch. After an exhausting round, I was about to fall asleep when I suddenly remembered something. I was going to be filming deep in the mountains with the award-winning actress Victoria Lane. I needed to let her know. As soon as I told her, Selena sat up, looking displeased. The memory of the plane crash still scared her. I held her and tried to reassure her. "Don't worry. The mountain has all the necessary facilities. It's quite safe. After this movie, I want to go visit Martha. I wonder how the fishing village is doing now." She nodded. "I'll go with you." "Okay, let's get some sleep. Is there nothing else you want to say?" "Nope." Selena narrowed her eyes and pulled me into her arms. "Nope, because I heard there's a kissing scene in this movie. 2 of them, in fact. How do you know more about it than I do?" She snorted and started speaking in a sarcastic tone. "If I didn't look into it, you wouldn't tell me. Am I supposed to find out at the movie theater? To see for myself how badly you've cheated on me? Hey, don't be ridiculous. It's part of the job. It's unavoidable. I never used a body double, so for kissing scenes, I always made sure to give her a heads up." Selena was very understanding, but also very jealous. "Joshua Miller used to have a crush on her. Be honest with me. Have you been waiting for a chance to work with her all this time? She's an Oscar winner. Who wouldn't be?" I mumbled, and her face grew darker. "Don't be mad. It's not like I took the role for the kissing scenes. It was too late to take it back." She pinned me down again and bit my lip. "Joshua Miller, if I don't teach you a lesson today, my last name isn't Reed. When Selena gets jealous, she's terrifying." I almost missed my flight the next day. At the end of the year, for my role in the film with Victoria Lane, I was nominated for Best Actor. It marked my successful transition from a teen idol to a serious actor. My fans online were ecstatic. People finally recognized my hard work because they had watched me climb my way back up, step by step. On the day of the awards ceremony, Selena was even more nervous than I was. Whether we could get remarried all depended on tonight. Selena and I sat separately. When the host announced the nominees, he dragged it out, teasing the audience. My heart was pounding out of control. Finally, he got to the end. All right, I won't tease you anymore. The winner of this year's award for Best Actor is Leo Miller. Amid the roar of applause, I froze for 2 seconds, then stood up once I was sure I hadn't misheard. The spotlight instantly found me. I waved to the crowd, my eyes welling up with tears. At the same time, all the major social media apps crashed for a few seconds. Mentions of my name skyrocketed by hundreds of thousands. When I got on stage, the applause was deafening. I was actually a little nervous. In the sea of faces, my eyes found Selena's immediately. She smiled at me, looking even prouder than I felt. The stars might dim sometimes, but the moon is always there. I smiled back, my voice firm and confident. Hello, everyone. I'm Joshua Miller. Epilogue. My husband is a top-tier idol who has won numerous newcomer awards. And my smartest decision was pursuing him back in college. After we got married, I visited him on set often. After he finished his last project, he was supposed to take a break. But he started acting strangely, often talking to himself. He said he owned a company and had to go to work. One cold winter night, he kicked me out of our bedroom, looked at me coldly, and said our marriage was just for show and we didn't need to sleep together. Then he said Ethan was the love of my life. But I've only ever loved him. I knew he was sick. I called Dr. Evans. She told me not to provoke him, or it would only make it harder for him to distinguish reality from the script. So, I started playing along with his performance. I didn't know how, but I learned. I started a subsidiary company, Apex Entertainment. I hired a legion of actors and extras to create a custom-made environment for him. Even his phone and computer were scrubbed of any access to outside information. I wrapped him in a vacuum-sealed world and patiently helped him find his way out. My dad said I was wasting the family fortune. But what's the point of making money if not to spend it on your husband? Joshua stopped wanting to talk to me. He either threw himself into his work or found ways to piss me off. He actually did a decent job running the company. His dual degree in college wasn't for nothing. And I had to keep bringing men home for show. When I saw him smiling at Victoria Lane, I almost exploded. When is this nightmare going to end? I couldn't even hug him. I had to pretend I despised him. Then one day Joshua wanted a divorce. I went out drinking, trying to find a place to hide. When I heard he was moving out, I rushed back. I couldn't stand seeing him look so hurt, so in the end, I agreed to the divorce. Damn it. A story about a wife groveling to win her ex-husband back. Why do I have to be the one to suffer through this? What kind of twisted screenwriter wrote this bizarre story? I couldn't accept it, so I ran after his car, wanting him to take a good look at me. I'm his wife, Selena Reed. He promised he would never leave me. But the car just got faster. Couldn't catch him. Dr. Evans said that his behavior was, in part, a reflection of his true feelings. He longed for independence, for freedom. I understood, but it still broke my heart. All the praise he received was drowned out by the public's doubt, and he had heard every word of it. After the divorce, the hardest part was arranging actors to be with him. He was going to give a speech, so all the extras were in place. But due to a security lapse, his old high school teacher accidentally got in. Thankfully, their meeting went smoothly. But my staff told me that even after learning about our high school history, he didn't have much of a reaction. Even that couldn't jog his memory. Joshua, don't you love me anymore? I was suddenly terrified. The plane crashed and my team lost him. I sent those idiots to the desert to plant trees. I searched the mountains, the sea, everywhere. But nothing. I didn't eat or sleep for days, just searched for him. It's all my fault. I failed to protect him. Ben said he got a text. Finally, I found him in a remote mountain village. I held him tight and never wanted to let go again. Joshua had lost so much weight. I cooked for him, but he wouldn't eat. His memory started showing signs of returning. It wasn't until his father's visit that his deepest memories were triggered. He finally broke free from the script. He said he wanted to make a comeback. I said okay. He said he wanted to be himself. I said okay. He said we could only get remarried after he won Best Actor. But thankfully my Joshua worked so hard, and he won. Watching him accept the award, I cried secretly. In the middle of the night, I was too excited to sleep, so I called Dr. Evans. She thought something was wrong and sounded worried. I said, "Nothing's wrong. My husband is Best Actor." She hung up on me. Then I called Dom. Today, Joshua was in a good mood, and we went to City Hall. Holding our marriage certificate again, I felt like crying. Finally, my Joshua